So how do we start? Let's say me and you meet, you're trying to sell me something right now. How do you start understanding what my two predominant needs are? Is it through questioning, or is it through you've done some research on me in the past? How would you go about that?
Yeah. So bear in mind that those two predominant needs are your biggest life needs. However, when I'm on the phone, when I'm on the call with you now, if I'm selling you something or it's my first meeting, what's your first need? Your first need is, how can I get this person away from me? Or how can I quickly figure out this person's a waste of time or not? Right? That's the first need. So here's what I advise. Be very clear and honest with yourself about what this person needs are at the moment of your interaction. It's all well and good that you and I'm going to try and tap in and find out which of the two predominant needs are. But right now, that's not what you care about. Right now, you want to learn as quickly as possible, am I a time waster or am I someone of value? Make sense?
Yep.
So I need to start by giving you value straight away. And the first thing that you've got to do is you've got to do your research and your homework. Too many buyers are exposed to salespeople that are lazy, don't give them the respect in terms of let me do my homework about you and come prepared. They come to the call or the conversation having done no preparation and asking them wide open questions that frankly really annoy the buyer, because it just shows you haven't come prepared. In fact, you're asking me to give you information so that you can sell something to me. It is completely disrespectful to these buyers. So do your research about the person that you are talking to. And there are 4 spheres of research, right? Number 1 is industry. Do your research about the industry that this person is working in, because every decision they're making is within the context of an industry. Everything's done within context. We are contextual human beings. Good, bad, light, dark, cold, hot. Everything's in context. And you'll have a lot of salespeople that will ask, well, I have to make 100 calls a day, or I have to make 50 calls a day, or 20, whatever it is, I have to make a day. I have to do a high number of calls a day. I can't do research on every one of those. Fine. Do research on the industry. It's the most scalable way for understanding what the context of a company, and then you can do a 2-minute or 3-minute research about each company, because if they say they're growing by 2%, but they're planning to grow by 2% in 2020, right? COVID aside, let's say they're planning to grow by 2% in 2020, but the rest of their industry is growing at 5%. That tells you far more than just the 2%, right? Or if they're growing by 2%, but the rest of the industry is growing by 0.5%, that tells you something as well, right? So understand the industry, because if you're an industry expert, which is what they want you to be, you've got their attention. You know what they're doing. So industry is the first sphere you want to research on. The second sphere is company. Research the company that you're talking to, right? Very straightforward, right? Look at their finances, look at what they're trying to achieve, look at those strategic decisions being made, all those things. We can come into that later on if you want to. The next one is understand the role of the person. When you were in sales, right, did you, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, but this is really to help your listeners. Who did you sell to? What were the job titles of the people you sold to in your last company?
In my last company, so we were selling clinical trials to pharmaceutical organizations. So clinical trial managers, VPs of research and development. Those would be, I guess, the 2 main people I was reaching out to at the time.
VP of research and development, right? I spent 5 years selling to chief R&D officers of the biggest companies in the world. So I know this space very well. So if I was to say to you, name the top 5 KPIs that this person is held accountable for in their job, i.e. when their manager sits down with them at the end of the year and does a review of whether they've done a good job this year, would you be able to have named the 5 biggest metrics or KPIs that person's job role was accountable for?
If I'm honest, probably not. I wouldn't be that clear on it if I'm very honest, probably. Yeah.
And by the way, it's a very common thing, right? And the first step is, if you don't know something, if someone helps you figure out some of the things you don't know, you now have a framework to learn something that's going to help you, right? Very few salespeople actually know how the people they're selling to, how their buyers are being rated in effectiveness in their own job. They're busy throwing ROI, throwing value, throwing this. But the person you talk to might be saying, well, this doesn't help me get promoted. It's not even in my KPI spread. It's not even in my MBOs. I'm not even going to be tested on this. I don't care, right? So know the role of the person that you're selling to. Know what motivates them. Know how they're being targeted. Know how they're being assessed of whether they're being effective or not, right? Because it hits into one of the 6 needs. And then the final one is know about the person. That's when you start to get into the 6 needs. So at the beginning of the call, do your research. And then the second thing you need to do while you're doing your research is because you are trying to inject what I call a jolt. It's like a lightning bolt. Because you're changing their state. They're shifting their psychological state. And in the early 2000s, we had a sales trainer come into a company that I was working for. In 2008 or 9, I think it came. And back then, in B2B sales, we were taught that buyers are neutral. They don't dislike you, but they don't like you either. But they're open to be convinced. That's no longer the case, not even close. In fact, they downright hate you in a lot of ways. They also hate the buying process itself. So no matter how good you are, we can come on to this later on, buyers hate the buying process. It is painful, it is complex, all of those things. A recent survey by LinkedIn found that 25% of B2B buyers felt that or perceived the sales profession, the whole profession, is morally and ethically challenged. That means a quarter of the buyers that you're talking to likely feel that you have moral and ethical challenges. You're not going to be truthful. 40% of buyers believe, another stat is 40% of buyers believe that salespeople generally are not trustworthy.
Wow, that's a lot.
So that's a lot. So they're not neutral, right? In fact, they're looking for the first thing that you're going to say that's going to confirm that, right? And there's a bit of psychology there in terms of confirmation bias. So you've got to inject something so powerful. And the way that you do that, the way that you change someone's state is to inject something that's surprising. Our brains are wired to notice something that's surprising. So you've got to teach them something. You've got to teach them something about either their industry, their business, or something that they're doing, or teach them about, and sellers are really at a privilege here. I speak to, I have 5 conversations 5 times a day, 5 times a week with heads of sales of large companies, small companies, medium-sized companies. I speak to more sales leaders in a month than a sales leader would speak to another sales leader in at least a year. That means I have such privileged information that they find valuable. I can share with them what the realities are in terms of not just the trends, but what are some of the best sales leaders doing versus what are some of the worst doing. So you've got to inject something that's based upon research, something that is novel, something they didn't know or didn't fully appreciate. It's a business conversation. And you've got to inject it in such a way that it literally jolts them, it shocks them. And they're kind of like saying, hang on a second, what? Right? Even if they disagree with you, that's fine. It means that you've hooked them in. And you have a chance now to share with them and say in a professional way and say, they may disagree with you, but let me explain to you why actually this really is the case. So does that make sense? That you've got to do your homework, give them respect and courtesy, do your homework, and then start the conversation with a jolt, an insight, or teaching them something that is going to surprise them and make them want to learn more. That's curiosity. You want to arouse their curiosity as well.
Yeah.
That's at the beginning of a conversation.